Wrestling is fake. You know they're not actually hitting each other, right? How could you possibly find enjoyment when you know it's scripted? Anyone who thinks pro wrestling's real is a fucking moron. These remarks are just snippets of bullshit spewing out of the mouths belonging to dickheads I've had to put up with for practically my entire life. I love wrestling. Always have, and like most fans of sports entertainment my age, I had one eye on the then World Wrestling Federation, or WWF if you will, and the other on World Championship Wrestling, which is obviously abbreviated to WCW. When the former purchased the latter, I stuck with it despite the overall quality taking a dip due to what I feel like was a lack of serious competition. Eventually I came across TNA, which in the wrestling world is an acronym for Total Non-Stop Action. At that point in time, TNA was way better than World Wrestling Entertainment, formerly WWF. There was a rebranding back in 2002. Anyway, inevitably most of the talent from that promotion were snatched up by the WWE and took my wrestling-orientated attention with it. Fun was had for a while, but over time even tuning into WWE's Raw and SmackDown highlights felt like a chore as opposed to watching something I love performed at the highest level. I'm doing air quotations, by the way. My interest began to deplete, and as awesome as diving into old Extreme Championship Wrestling footage was, I craved something more contemporary than the ECW archive. Hope was almost lost, but out of what had to have been one of my wet dreams came All Elite Wrestling. AEW completely kickstarted my and many other people's passion for professional wrestling, but yeah, I and many others I imagine have been forever criticised for loving this shit, and I really don't know why. How can you settle for the illusion of combat when you could watch real fights like in the Ultimate Fighting Championship? Well, cunt face, it just so happens that I like both. Granted, I haven't been into watching mixed martial arts as long as sports entertainment, but at no point did the powers that be descend from the sky and forced me to pick one or the other. It's okay to be into both. My music library contains audio savagery as well as the direct opposite of that, and many eclectic tunes in between. Despite this fucking phenomenon, my computer hasn't melted and the universe is intact because it's okay to not handcuff yourself to a particular genre of, well, anything, so I don't see an issue with enjoying what comes from the octagon as well as the squared circle. Also, it would be very ignorant to think that wrestlers live a pain-free life. Even if you push aside the numerous deaths that have happened in the ring and the ones that come years after exiting it as a result of the toil associated with the wrestler lifestyle, not to mention the countless months a year they spend on the road away from their beer fridge and drug dealers, it's still a fucking rough way of living. Injuries occur frequently, which is no surprise considering they spend many hours at the mercy of gravity and the ring. I'm going to indulge you in some half-hearted visual aids now, so here it goes. Yes, between the wooden beams and the canvas lies a thin layer of foam to provide the wrestler with some form of protection, but doesn't even slightly guarantee a pleasant landing, especially when the wrestler falls from heights as great as 20 plus feet, depending on the nature of the match. The ropes themselves have been known to give horrendous friction burns and bruises. They're held together and kept taut by turnbuckles covered in a padding to protect the performers. Despite the padding, many injuries have transpired at the hands of the turnbuckles, to the point where in 2020 WWE banned their wrestlers from performing a particular move that integrates them. The steel ring posts have been known to cause concussions to even the most seasoned sports entertainer, and the apron, also known as the hardest part of the ring, is notorious for putting wrestlers on the shelf for quite some time. Not to mention the steel steps that are typically homed at opposing corners of the ring are known to cause severe physical trauma when incorporated into a match. There are dangers that dwell beneath the ring. A common misconception is that the weapons dragged from underneath the squared circle are all completely artificial and cause no damage to the performers whatsoever. As it happens, some of the hardware is indeed manufactured to make the occasion look like more of a spectacle. For example, the tables are made of chipping wood and are therefore quite fragile, hence why it doesn't take much impact to break them in half, but the metal elements of them can cause an injury if the table collapses in an undesirable manner. The kendo sticks are hollow, taped together, and disintegrate after a few hits, but this doesn't stop them from fucking up flesh. The ladder legs are also hollow and are fabricated in a way that, much like the tables, fold in half when a certain amount of force is applied, but if you go by the condition of most of the performers post-ladder match, this clearly isn't a painless endeavour. The chairs are legitimately made of steel and cleaned shots taken to the head were abolished in WWE back in 2010 because too many concussions were taking place. The drawing pins or thumbtacks, depending on where you're from, are very real, and honestly it comes as no surprise because you can see them sticking into the wrestler's skin and ring attire during their involvement. It's been reported that the idea of being slammed onto them hurts more than the reality, but it has also been documented that picking them out of your body is more painful than both, so regardless, it's not exactly a pleasant way to spend an evening. Also, the barbed wire that's occasionally been used to replace ropes in certain matches and have been wrapped around various implements of intention is also very much real. Very much fuck that. The squared circle is bordered by mats that separates wrestlers from the arena floor, which is almost certainly concrete. Now, judging by the looks of them alone, they appear to share the same depth as your average dojo mat, which, and I can attest to this, isn't exactly like having your fall broken by a goose-feathered mattress woven by angels. If you venture out beyond the match, you'll come across the barricades which divides the front row from the action. Depending on what promotion you're watching will depend on what material they are made from. Barriers belonging to mainstream wrestling companies usually have a steel framework with counterweights at the base, all of which are coated in various forms of padding, resulting in them being mostly stationary, but they do collapse when performers are yeeted into them. The more impecunious companies use steel guardrails linked to each other, which become slidey as fuck when introduced to a body, meaning the talent drifts away from the limited comfort provided by the mats and into the mercy of the concreted arena floor. Personally, I'd prefer to experience the former, however you're not going to come out of either circumstance better off. That is the end of your half-hearted visual aids. Do not expect them for every episode of this new series. Anyway, so even if we exclude the deaths and injuries associated with the aforementioned aspects of wrestling, there's still the damage caused by good old-fashioned human error, or botching as it's known in the sports entertainment business. It happens at every place of work, but slip-ups in the wrestling industry have resulted in black eyes being spiked, knocked out teeth, paralysis, as well as bone breakages and fractures. The list rages on and makes you wonder if it's worth the paycheck and burdens that come with celebrity status. But it's scripted, bro, it's scripted. Okay, you have a point. There is an element of fiction in wrestling. A lot of the in and out of ring activity is predetermined for the sake of an ongoing narrative, but that's the entertainment aspect of it all. Besides, and certainly in this case, fiction can be fun. Over the years, I have enjoyed fathomless amounts of hours soaking in material from different mediums fabricated from someone else's mind, and at no point did I feel that my overall experience of it was blemished by the knowledge that it's make-believe. For example, my love for Pacific Rim is well documented, but that love wasn't diluted when I found out that the world wasn't genuinely being overrun by kaijus and that we actually weren't building huge fuck-off robots to combat them. I'm being facetious, of course, but on a serious note, knowing that movie was predominantly a collection of CGI didn't prevent me from making it my favourite film of that decade. Before or after seeing certain forms of entertainment, I like to watch the making of it, and despite being shown how certain stunts were executed, what cinematography techniques were used, what's behind the motion capture, the prop manufacture, hair, makeup and costume design, etc., my immersion in the finished product failed to be diluted. Knowing that the animators simply stopped drawing Bambi's mom didn't undermine the impact of the scene. We all know that the dialogue in fictitious films, including the epic speeches from Independence Day and The Return of the King, was created by a team of writers and recited by the talent, but that didn't stop the goosebumps from showing up. It's no secret that scenes such as the incredible Battle of Helm's Deep and the beautiful brutality in the John Wick movies are all choreographed, but that doesn't prevent the jaws from dropping. Pornography is littered with artificial breasts, which in some cases are very apparent. However, my orgasm cares not about this minor detail, hence why I'm seeking endorsements from Kleenex. But still, anyone who thinks wrestling is real is a fucking idiot. Don't agree. Firstly, if their misconception upsets you to the point where you're not capable of healthy debate, then don't bother engaging them over the subject, as nothing positive will come of it. Secondly, who are you to criticize their credence? In a world that's constructed of harsh reality and bullshit, escapism is paramount, and for me personally, wrestling has always served as a retreat from said reality reality regardless of my perception, which during my much younger years was very much camped in the wrestling is real side of the fence. I was too immersed in the occasion to think otherwise, and I couldn't say that in a more unapologetic manner. With that said though, if you're indeed one of those cunts that for some reason or another is on a mission to ruin wrestling for someone who isn't yet able to distinguish between the reality and the staged elements of it all, don't fucking do it. You have no right and it isn't your place. To go further into the reason why you shouldn't be a cunt, I'm going to have to issue some sort of festive themed spoiler warning just to cover my grounds. I'll give you a countdown. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, hear me out. Do you remember when Christmas was so much more awesome when you were under the impression that your gifts were being delivered by a man who has ignored the concept of rosacea and a BMI chart for far too long? However, over time you became more aware of the fact that the aforementioned gifts came courtesy of your parents or perhaps someone else working their fucking asses off, which somewhat blemished the magic at least for a while before you started to appreciate it in different ways. My personal experience with wrestling was very similar to that, but the grand reveal happened way too bloody early at the hands of some cunt who had no fucking right to play spoiler. Yes, after much research it made me enjoy pro wrestling from a fresh perspective, but I wasn't ready to look at my love for sports entertainment through fictional eyes so soon, which, on reflection, certainly fucked with me for a while, but for me to dive further into that I'd have to dive deeply into a bottle of something. For those of you who remember my review of 2019, it's okay if you don't, a lot of shit has occurred since then, but if you do, then you'd recall that I mentioned that I was going to make this video eventually, and it was to be titled Wrestling is Fake, and that's okay. But as I was fabricating this transcript, the more I came to realise that such a title was losing merit with each passing word. When you summarise everything I've said for the past fuck knows how many minutes about the world of sports entertainment, you come to the conclusion that wrestling isn't as fake as you think. Okay, there's actually nothing else written in front of me. I'm gonna just speak from the heart. I hope you don't mind. If you have gotten this far, thank you ever so much for watching the video. I appreciate it. Even if you only watch 10 seconds of it, it means everything to me. I'd find it weird if you watched 10 seconds of it and then somehow skipped this part of the video, but whatever. Making this video has been on my to-do list for fucking years, and I am so happy that I finally got it out there. I do want this to be a consistent series. It's not all going to be about wrestling, obviously. They will be probably as inconsistent as all my other fucking material, let's be honest with ourselves here. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. And I will come up with a catchphrase to end it on before the generic metal kicks in. But for now, take it away, Technoax.